Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into something that might sound, well, maybe a bit dry at first. We're talking about daily routine.
Yeah, it does feel a bit counterintuitive, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
we're constantly told happiness comes from, new things, spontaneous moments, always chasing
yeah,
more.
exactly. More. And routine sounds like the opposite of that, like restriction, maybe even boredom.
Mm-hmm. Constraint.
But the source material we're looking at today, it's excerpts from an essay on the psychology of daily routine. It flips that whole idea around completely.
It really does. So our mission here is to unpack what this essay argues.
Mhm.
That routine, far from being dull, is actually this crucial psychological tool.
A tool, how so?
Well, it connects directly to our mood, our sense of safety, even finding deeper happiness and purpose. It really challenges those basic assumptions about what makes life feel good.
Okay, let's dive in then. The essay kicks off with a pretty bold claim, actually. It suggests that if you look at really successful people, you know, geniuses, masters as it calls them, they often shared one key trait. And it wasn't just talent, it was having these rigid, specific routines.
And the essay anticipates the pushback, but isn't that boring?
Yeah.
It clarifies straight away this isn't necessarily about like sitting in the same office chair day in, day out. Your routine could even involve, say, routine travel.
Or being routinely unroutine, as it says, structuring spontaneity almost.
Kind of, yeah. The point isn't the exact content of the routine.
Okay, so if it's not the activities themselves, what is the crucial part?
It's the steadiness,
Yeah.
the predictability, the feeling of safety that repetition gives your subconscious, knowing what's coming next.
Ah, okay. And that leads to the essay's main argument, doesn't it? That you need to consciously decide what you want your day to look like and then, well, stick to it.
Exactly. It makes this really strong case that routine matters because habitualness, just the act of doing things habitually, is what actually creates your mood.
Habitualness creates mood.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And mood, the essay argues, shapes the whole nurture aspect of who you are, your personality, how you experience things.
So if you just let impulse rule your day,
Then you're basically setting yourself up for negativity, for unwanted stuff to creep in.
yeah,
You're not building intentionally.
you're just reacting,
Right. And the essay also points out something important about real happiness,
which is.
that it often isn't about the easy, quick fix.
Hmm?
Genuine satisfaction frequently involves, pushing through some resistance, making a sacrifice.
Okay. And routine helps with that.
Yeah, the idea is it helps nullify that feeling of struggle. Either the task just becomes normal, part of the background noise.
So it doesn't feel like a big effort anymore.
Exactly. Or the routine itself provides the structure, the regulation to just push through that resistance almost automatically.
Like building a muscle for follow through. Okay, that ties into the first big point the essay makes about routine and mood specifically.
Yes. Point one, your habits literally create your mood. And that mood, it's the filter for everything, how you see the world, how you react to things.
But usually we think moods come from, specific events, like I had a bad meeting, so I'm in a bad mood.
We do. But this essay, and mentions psychologist Robert Thayer here, argues it's much more about our habitualness,
Habitualness, meaning
our consistent patterns, sleep patterns, movement patterns, even our thinking patterns. It's less about one single stressor.
and more about the repetition.
Precisely.
Well,
It's not the one negative thought necessarily, but the habit of thinking that way or experiencing something repeatedly that makes it feel real and digs that groove deeper, shaping our overall mood.
okay, that makes a lot of sense, actually, the compounding effect. And this leads right into the next point about conscious control, right?
Yes. Point two, learning to let your conscious decisions, your intentions, guide the day rather than, fears or those fleeting impulses.
The essay uses that minefield metaphor, doesn't it?
It does. An untamed mind, without that regulation or focus, is like a minefield. Anything can pop up, a random worry, a sudden craving, and convince you it's what you really want, even if it undermines your actual goals.
What was the example it used? Something about drinks.
Yeah, the classic, I really want to go out for drinks tonight, even though you know you need to prep for a big presentation tomorrow.
Uh-huh. Short-term win, maybe.
Right? Seems valid in the moment. But the essay points out the long-term result bombing that meeting is potentially disastrous. We've all been there, I think.
Oh, definitely. So building a routine is presented as what? Like practice.
Exactly. Practice in letting your conscious choices know this presentation is important for my future self. Take the wheel. Letting that temporary crap as the essay puts it, just fall away.
Building a framework to protect your intentions?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then essay shifts to happiness, challenging that whole more is better thing we talked about.
Yeah, point 3 is pretty direct. Happiness isn't about how many things you do. It's about how well you do the things you're already doing.
More is not better. That feels almost radical today.
It really does. The essay suggests real happiness isn't this constant chase for the next thing, the new experience, but it's about finding new ways to experience what you already have.
Going
Deeper into your current life, your work, your relationships.
instead of just skimming the surface looking for novelty.
Right. And it connects us to how we're often taught, follow your passion above all else, which can make us feel like if we're not constantly feeling passionate or doing something new, we must be unhappy.
Which links back to the impulse thing, maybe. Always chasing the next hit of passion.
That seems to be the underlying idea. You don't settle long enough to find the depth, the richness, in consistency. And that consistency, the essay argues, ties into something fundamental.
Yeah.
Feeling safe.
Okay, safety. How does routine connect to safety? Seems like a jump.
Well, point 4 explains it. When you regulate your day with routine, you're basically turning down the volume on your fight or flight response because you're not constantly facing the unknown. Change is inherently unknown, right?
Yeah.
And our primal brain often flags the unknown as a potential threat.
Okay. So routine equals predictability, which equals less perceived threat.
Exactly. And the essay suggests this is why change is hard, but also why people with consistent habits often feel more joy. Their basic fear system is just quieter.
It's turned off long enough for them to actually enjoy something, I think was the phrase.
That's the one. The predictability creates a baseline of psychological safety.
Which allows other things like enjoyment to actually surface.
Okay.
And this safety idea evolves, right? Point 5 talks about it across a lifespan.
Yeah, it suggests routine gives kids a sense of safety, and for adults, that same underlying mechanism provides sense of purpose.
Safety and purpose coming from the same place.
The essay says the feelings are similar in origin, yeah. Both are about managing the fear of the unknown.
How so?
Well, for a kid, the world is mostly unknown, right? Left from right, why things happen, is this new thing scary? Routine creates little islands of known in that sea.
Okay. And for adults?
That feeling shifts inward.
Yeah.
It becomes the comfort of, I know how to do this, I've done it before. It reaffirms competence, predictability.
Which connects to point 6, doesn't it? That routine reaffirms the conscious decisions we've made.
Yes, exactly. The essay argues you feel content, partly because the routine is like a constant, quiet validation of a choice you actively made.
Like deciding to write that book, and then the routine of writing each morning reinforces the decision and your ability to act on it.
Precisely. It becomes this internal feedback loop. The essay calls it, honestly, the healthiest way to feel validated. Not needing external praise, but validating your own follow-through.
That's powerful. Shifting validation inward. And this consistency, the self-regulation, it leads to another concept, flow.
Point 7, yeah. It suggests that as your body and mind get used to this regulation through routine, it actually becomes easier to enter states of flow. It's like Csikszentmihalyi here.
Can you remind us briefly what flow is?
Sure. It's that feeling of being completely absorbed in what you're doing, totally engaged. Time kind of disappears, worries fade away. You're just in the task.
Okay. And routine helps get you there. How?
The idea is that by training your system with consistent cues, wake up at 7, sit down to write at 2, whatever it is, you create these pathways.
So you can slip into that deep focus state more easily.
Yeah, almost just out of habit, as the essay puts it. The structure lowers the barrier to entry for deep engagement.
So routine isn't just discipline, it's like a launch pad for peak experience. Okay, but what about the downside? What happens when we don't have routine? Point 8.
Right. The essay argues that without routine, we tend to misinterpret fear, that little bit of anxiety or resistance you feel when starting something important.
Yeah.
We learn to read that as a sign we're doing the wrong thing, instead of seeing it simply as proof that we're invested in the outcome.
So we back away instead of leaning in.
Exactly. And the consequence, the essay is blunt. A lack of routine is a breeding ground for perpetual procrastination.
Why a breeding ground?
Because it leaves all these unstructured gaps and spaces in your day. Moments where there's no clear intention.
And into those gaps.
Your subconscious jumps in. It finds it really easy to justify putting things off. Oh, you can take a break now, or maybe just check email quickly, even when you have a deadline looming.
And you let yourself do it because...
Because, as the essay says, you always do. The lack of routine has accidentally created its own habit. the habit of procrastination or distraction, filling those empty slots.
Wow. Okay, let's try and synthesize this for you listening. Understanding all these connections, routine to mood, to control, safety, happiness, flow, avoiding procrastination. What does this actually mean for your day-to-day life?
Well, it suggests that putting even simple routines in place isn't about limiting yourself. It's really about building a stronger psychological foundation.
So you feel less pushed around by random thoughts or impulses?
Yeah, less overwhelmed. You gain more conscious control.
Mm.
You might find more genuine satisfaction, maybe, by doing things deeply instead of just chasing more and more and more. And potentially, you quiet that background anxiety that comes from constant uncertainty.
So the essay really positions intentional habits not just as a path to, like, getting more done, but as fundamental tools for feeling better internally, for purpose, for well-being.
That really seems to be the core message. It reframes routine completely, not as a boring constraint, but as a way to consciously shape your inner world.
Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with, drawing directly from this material. If, as the essay suggests, our subconscious mind uses those gaps, those unstructured moments created by a lack of routine, to steer us towards procrastination and old habits. And if, on the flip side, having a routine consistently reaffirms the conscious choices we make about how we genuinely want to live and work, then it raises a really interesting question to consider as you go about your day. How much of your experience is actually driven by your deliberate intentions, your chosen goals? And how much is just the default setting, the autopilot, reinforced by the patterns, or maybe the lack of patterns you currently have?
Definitely something to think about.